So welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming. Now, as you find your seat, we'd like to welcome Lynn Videka, the Dean, and Carol T. Mowbray, Collegiate Professor of Social Work, and Julian Levinson, the Director of Graduate Studies at the Frankel Center, will follow with words of welcome and convocation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And I want to say how much I always love this event. I consider it the capstone of a very full graduation weekend. So I welcome you to the School of Social Work to celebrate the graduates of the Jewish Communal Leadership Program. And I want to say how honored we are to have you, family members, graduates, leaders in the community, friends of the program and of the school. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. I'm going to say just a few words about my deep admiration for this program. It's really this kind of special program. This is what makes the University of Michigan a very special place, and this is what makes our school excel and offer unique and deep and strong educational programs. So the program is highly interdisciplinary. Graduates, would you agree? Yes. So the graduates have a sense of history, a sense of culture, and of course, strong social work skills, really poised to be leaders. Second of all, and I know this from participating in program events over the years, this is a program that not only focuses on content. In fact, the content is a little bit secondary to the personal transformation that is the heart of learning in the Jewish Communal Leadership Program. And of course, I've been known to say, any of you who might have read a Friday newsletter that I write, that I really think that personal transformation is the hallmark of a good, strong social work education. It's how the education transforms you as a person. That is what you're going to carry with you, graduates, throughout your careers, because knowledge will change. You have good working knowledge right now, but you also know that that knowledge will change and you're prepared to learn throughout your career and throughout your life. And finally, You're positioned for leadership roles in the community. You have a deep sense of culture and community, and you are positioned to be a leader. And that is what, we sing in our fight song, The Leaders and the Best. And really, this program really exemplifies that in a very deep and a very genuine way. So welcome to the ceremony today, and thank you for sharing your time with us. Thanks.
Hi, good morning. I'd like to echo some of Dean Videka's enthusiasm here in a second when I get this mic. So my name is Julian Levinson. I'm the Director of Graduate Studies at the Frankel Center for Judaic Studies. So I represent the Judaic Studies component of the JCLP program. And it's just been a great honor for me and for our department to work with the social work students. I will say for myself, getting to know these wonderful students in my classes has been one of the true signs of hope for me at this troubled time. It makes me feel confident that we have the means to think and act and love our way out of some of our troubles at the moment. And I'm really thankful to this group who I've gotten to know, thankfully, very well over the years for that real reassurance. So I teach some of the more theoretical side of things. One class I teach, I've had many of the students just now in a class on methodology in Judaic studies. So this is sort of highfalutin theoretical stuff. And in social work, obviously, you think a lot about the difference between theory and practice. Theory, what you want to instill in a kind of ideal situation, and practice, what actually happens on the ground. So I have a brief story that I want to bring in to sort of think through the difference between theory and practice a little bit. All right. So when I was 15 years old, I played JV basketball in a small high school, and we were a terrible team. And, I just remember being kind of cold in my uniform with all these scrawny boys with, it's like hanging too low. And we were on the road playing at a school down south. This was in California. And we had been practicing a play. Now in basketball, you have these elaborate plays where one guy goes here and then he goes the other way, and then you have an option 1 or an option 2, and then you set a pick, and it's very complicated. But we were kids and we weren't that good. So we're working the play, trying to do it, and we were losing terribly. Our coach, Bob Hoatling, who was a big, trusty fellow, called timeout. And we're sitting around and we're panting, and we got our, little scrawny boys. And he looked at us and he said, "Do you guys know what's wrong here?" And I knew that what he was going to say was that we were not working the play. So this is on the side of theory, right? This is the plan that you've come up with. And he was going to say, you've got to work your plan. And I knew, because I was sort of in tune with him, that that's what he was going to say. Now, I had a friend on the team who was always, his mind was always somewhere else. Reevin Troopin, and he was frustrated. And when Bob Hoatling, Coach Hoatling, said, "Do you guys know what's wrong here?" He said, "Yeah, man, we aren't shooting." And it was a beautiful moment, because my first thought was, he wants us to say we're not running the play, and you're saying we're not shooting. This is not the schoolyard. But then I realized that he's right. If you're not going to shoot, you're not going to score. Why do I bring in this story? Because this is theory running into a hard brick wall and needing to be flexible and open itself to the reality of practice, the moment. Keeping your eye on the goal itself, which is beyond all the theoretical constructs that we come up with and elaborate again and again. I have the utmost confidence that our graduates will be able to see both the theoretical ideal situation and the practice on the ground, and what it takes to actually make the basket if you're playing basketball, to speak to the person who doesn't fit into the model or the theory, to enter the situation as it is in reality. So thank you for instilling this confidence in me, and I'm very confident to send you off with love and confidence, and keep us posted, please, on what happens. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Alana Somakian. I am a second year part of the graduating class in the Jewish Communal Leadership Program, and I wanted to introduce our lovely speaker. During our last JCLP seminar, as we reflected on some of our favorite questions we asked this year, I replied, asking Eliza Klein to be our speaker at JCLP graduation. This graduating class of JCLP students met with Eliza at the past 2 General Assemblies and have always found that our meetings with Eliza have had a profound impact on our GA experiences. Notably, during our first time at the GA, we met Eliza during a dark moment in Washington, D.C. in November of 2016. Meeting with Eliza was always a highlight of that GA experience. While not part of her original agenda, she helped us prepare for our upcoming meeting with an organization whose mission and values many of us did not align with. Many of us felt our anger and despair slowly vanish as she asked us leading questions to help guide us into a place of openness and support. Eliza modeled how challenging conversations can only be productive when approached with curiosity. I think without Eliza there to urge us to let go of judgments and assumptions and instead continue to ask why, in order to find more genuine answers and meaning, we would have missed a valuable opportunity to model the empathy and active listening that is required of us as social workers and as people. Eliza Klein serves as the founding executive director of One Table, also known as onetable.org, an online and in-person hub for millennials to end their week with intention and create unique Shabbat dinners. Eliza also co-founded Ma'im Chaim Community Mikvah and Education Center in Boston, an international model for reimagining Jewish ritual open to the full diversity of the Jewish community. I speak on behalf of all of the graduates of the Jewish Communal Leadership Program when I say we are honored to have Eliza here as our graduation keynote speaker.
Thank you. It's good to start that. It's lovely to see you all. I'm going to speak over here. I'm really glad to be here. I really believe with every fiber of my being that the skills that you have cultivated at the Jewish Communal Leadership Program will serve you throughout your life and your career, but more than that, will help the rest of us forge the Jewish community where the top priority is given to how people feel, not just what they know or how much they contribute. I want to talk with you today about chesed, about kindness, lovingness, as a guiding value and its importance in how you speak to yourself internally so that externally you can be the leader that you want to be. It was really powerful for me to be with you at the 2 most recent JFNA General Assemblies. I observed how carefully you chose your words, how you practiced curiosity, how you showed concern for others. The key to sustaining this caring for others is to be loving toward yourself. It sounds so simple, so obvious even, but it often feels way beyond our reach. When we're most in touch with our own reactions to people, news, stories, places we encounter, we can, with kindness, acknowledge our own response, explore it a bit, then breathe before talking. Often our thoughts seem to, well, have a mind of their own, and most often they're critical. We jump to the worst conclusions before granting ourselves the time to consider something else. In my career, there have been countless moments when I've said to myself, often with a sense of bewilderment, why on earth is insert name acting this way? Rarely does it dawn on me in the moment that there's likely something else going on. Perhaps this colleague or volunteer's anger and impatience or belligerence is not in response to something that I just did, but maybe something else in their life is off, and I'm just the first person that they're encountering. Or maybe I did say something that triggered an angry response, but we can't really decide for others how they should feel or behave, but we can practice curiosity and empathy and learn more. In all honesty, this is my life's work. I will always be working on it. And I'm a little envious of the head start that you all have after devoting so much time and energy into the science and art of social work. Empathy, the most important skill a leader can have. It's a skill that can be honed or ignored, but a wise person knows it's worth cultivating, and you have proven yourselves to be wise people. I first met you at the GA in 2016, days after the presidential election. We can all feel that. To be sure, our whole country was in shock, regardless, honestly, of political affiliation. But what you shared in that late night conversation is that the leaders that you had encountered, they seemed incapable of engaging with you. My guess is that they felt like they needed to have answers, and their lack of clarity led to a fear of inadequacy. So that was instead addressed with stilted and formal lines like, well, we're not a political organization. All they needed to do was to speak personally, sharing their own confusion, concern, fear, surprise, maybe even delight, and then share that they really didn't know how this would affect their work as Jewish community leaders. Sharing their feelings would have granted you the ability to empathize with them, to hear their struggle, to listen. Then in turn, they could have done the same for you, understanding with openness, curiosity, and no judgment what you were feeling in the moment. Your question will be, how do you invite others to be vulnerable so that you can engage with them in a real way? Rabbi Lisa Goldstein recently introduced me to the teachings of Sylvia Boorstein. I'm a little late to the game on this one. She's an expert in meditation, teaches both in the context of Judaism and Buddhism. And she suggests that when we're speaking to ourselves, we take on a tone of voice that is like the sweetest grandma or mom or dad, but a parent with love. And she starts with, "Oh, sweetheart." This is what we're supposed to say to ourselves. "Oh, sweetheart, you are in pain. Relax, take a breath. Let's pay attention to what's happening, and then we'll figure out what to do." It takes seconds to say to yourself, but make no mistake, it is a practice like basketball, and it takes practice. It doesn't feel natural or intuitive to many of us. The premise is first, when you recognize that something is off, you're supposed to be kind to yourself. Then you can more easily be empathetic and kind to others. It's that pause, that breath, that paying attention to what is happening that allows you to engage more authentically with others. As social workers, I know much of this is familiar to you. You inherently speak this language, and you understand this wisdom. Brene Brown, who I consider one of my rabbis, is a research professor at the University of Houston Graduate College of Social Work. She teaches about vulnerability, courage, authenticity, and shame. Thanks to her wildly popular TED Talks and subsequent writings, these ideas that were previously avoided in the public sphere are now kind of front and center. Recognizing what you're feeling, which may be beautiful or quite ugly, it might be motivated by fear or judgment. That means that you have to make yourself vulnerable. At the core, she teaches, vulnerability is the center of meaningful human experiences. It's worth saying again. Ready? Vulnerability is the center of meaningful human experiences. Amen, sister. This is where compassion comes in. It's the desire to be empathetic in the first place. Chesed, often translated as loving kindness, is yours to access, to help you grow and lead. You've honed these skills while at JCLP. You know how to listen, how to honor the experience of others, how to ask questions, reserve judgment, and provide the space for others to feel safe. Thank God. When you are in a position of power and authority, you will be the one to be vulnerable, to speak personally, and most importantly, to quietly and respectfully listen to those around you. This is the kind of leadership our world needs so desperately, and it's deeply Jewish. Our biblical models are all emotionally complex. They allow us to see ourselves in them. We see them struggle with fear, with jealousy, with rage, loneliness, and despair. Elie Wiesel, quoting one of his teachers, said that the loneliest character in the Bible was not Abraham or Sarah or Moshe or even Job. It's God. And Wiesel added that the only thing that helps ease God's loneliness is us, human beings. When we open our hearts in vulnerability, not only in a spiritual sense, but even to each other, God feels less alone. There's less loneliness in the world. If we are created b'tselem Elohim in the image of God, then we too can relate to this loneliness and to our power to engage authentically with others to ease their pain. Easing pain can be one of our tenets to creating a loving, safe, and vibrant Jewish community. But before we can ease it, we have to see it. And once we do see it, we have to avoid negating it. Let's see if this sounds familiar to you. Why don't millennials engage in traditional Jewish organizations? It's a question asked by our colleagues who lead or volunteer at those organizations. The question is asked from the perspective of the organization, not from the perspective of the person. Judgment is already implied. Should is the death knell for empathy, as in, millennials just don't care about Jewish community like they should. Or millennials should understand why organizations like ours are the key to a meaningful Jewish life. What happens if we change the questions around and start with the person? Where do you find meaning? When you feel a sense of belonging, where are you? Where do you go to get that? What's missing for you? What gets in the way of feeling that sense of belonging sometimes? Empathy helps us solve problems and create new ways for people to connect with Jewish life, ritual, and learning. Design thinking or human-centered design are just fancy Silicon Valley terms for empathy. That is, when you start with the person for whom you're designing, rather than the product you're selling, you'll ultimately create something that actually meets that person's needs and values rather than the other way around. I'll share one example, which has clearly affected my work as executive director at One Table. I was blessed with generous parents, eager to share their love of Judaism, especially ritual, with my siblings and with me. Our week revolved around Shabbat. We joked that we were Orthodox Reform, which meant that we always covered the table with the same freshly ironed white linens, polished silver cups, carefully arranged flowers, fragrant challah. We sang the same tunes, received and gave blessings, and then we rushed to Friday services. For me, that was just organic. It was part of the natural ebb and flow of my life. But for my parents, it was a conscious choice. They selected those cups. They preserved the linens from my grandmother. They tested different challah recipes until they found the one that would be sacred, although I swear to God, my mother changes it every time she makes it. They chose the tunes and the blessings, and they assigned who said each one. It was a very carefully designed ritual. For my parents, who didn't grow up as I did, it met their need for a feeling of permanence, belonging, and for the ability to share something unique with their family. In my work, we're designing access to the same ritual, but based on different needs and values of people like you. People who are seeking a reason to put down your smartphone, to unplug, to prepare and share homemade food, to have quality time, IRL, in real life. We know you'd like to be generous, but that as graduate students or new professionals, it may be impossible to think about preparing and serving dinner and purchasing all the food for 10 or more friends. When it comes to Jewish ritual, you'd like to do it your way, not following my how-tos or requirements, but with support and pro tips maybe, but most of all, trust. You have the tools to create an experience of meaning on your own. Designing in response to the needs of others requires that we start by actually understanding what others need. back to Brene Brown for a sec, because she reminds us that vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. This means that on your first day in your new position, and really at the start of every day, you have to admit to yourself with chesed, with loving kindness, that you do not have all the answers, that you bring all of your perspective and tools as masters of social work to every moment of your work. Maybe even start with Sylvia Boorstein's voice in your head. Oh, sweetheart, I have to admit, I don't know for certain what others need and value, and this is scary. What if I get it wrong? People might think I'm a fraud. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to channel that awareness into asking questions, reserving judgment, and trusting the responses that I get. Hey, good job, self. Way to be kind. It's when we recognize and remind ourselves to practice curiosity and empathy that we can actually generate new ideas and solutions. Here's another little bit of Sylvia. Smile when you're talking to yourself and when you're thinking of others. It can change things. We're going to take a minute and practice a little loving kindness. You ready? I invite you to sit in any posture that you like. Some like to put 2 feet firmly on the ground and straighten your back. It's a little bit easier to breathe. If you like, you can close your eyes. It is slightly less awkward if you do. And I promise to tell you when you're going to open them back up again. Take a long breath in and out. Let's just take one more. Long breath in and out. Feel yourself sitting here. Feel yourself surrounded by all these people. Feel yourself, I hope, content, happy. Chesed, loving kindness, always begins with a blessing for yourself. So let's start. May I feel safe. May I feel content. May I feel strong. May I live with ease. Now bring into mind someone that you love tremendously. A parent, a partner, a child, a sibling. You probably have more than one. Just pick one for this moment. Maybe someone right here who's celebrating with you. Make this wish in your mind for that person. May you feel safe. May you feel content. May you feel strong. May you live with ease. Remember to smile because it helps your whole body feel more relaxed. Now think of someone you rarely think about, but who you'd recognize if you met. It could be the person who makes that completely excellent latte, or drives your Lyft, or works in your organization, but maybe in a different department. Think of a person that's familiar, a familiar stranger, and wish for them. May you feel safe. May you feel content. May you feel strong. May you live with ease. Think about the people that you recognize in the world, familiar strangers, all the unfamiliar strangers near and far, all around us, here and stretching out all around the world. All people just like us, who share the same wishes and hopes and dreams that we have as human beings, to come home to their family and friends, to be able to take care of their family, to celebrate another birthday. Wish for all those people, all beings near and far. May you feel safe. May you feel content. May you feel strong. May you live with ease. May all of us everywhere feel safe and content and strong and live with ease. We're almost ready to open our eyes, but not yet. Now think of the person to your right and to your left, in back of you, in front of you, and send them this thought. May you feel safe. May you feel content. May you feel strong. May you live with ease. As you open your eyes now, look around. Perhaps you'll look to the right and to the left and behind and in front and see all those people who've been blessing you. It's really lovely to be in a room full of blessing people. You just imagine a world in which people wish themselves something like this. It'd be a nicer place. I'm going to end with a blessing just for you, class of 2018, the year of Chai and opportunity. Ready? You just stand up. It's easier to receive a blessing that way. May you be guided by chesed, by loving kindness. May that chesed be your gentle reminder to be curious and empathetic. May you listen with humility and warmth. May your creativity be guided by the needs and values of others. May you speak to yourself as gently and lovingly as you speak to others. May this community of friends and colleagues and teachers and family always provide you with a supportive and nurturing push for you to do your very best work. V'yasem lachem shalom. And may God always watch over you and give you peace. Amen ve'amen.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Wall.
And I'm Danny Kaplan.
And we're rising second years in JCLP. We feel very privileged to be able to say a few words today about the folks who sit before us as graduates of the School of Social Work in JCLP. We've been exceedingly lucky to have learned with and from this group this year. As incoming first years last fall, we had no idea what to expect from this program, but it was clear from the very beginning that at very least we had incredible guides and role models in the class above us. We thought we'd share a bit about what makes these graduates so special and so important to us.
The graduates have enriched our program with their wide range of perspectives, talents, backgrounds, and experiences. They represent a full age spectrum from those in their youthful early 20s to their mature late 20s.
They hail from all over the country, representing 6 states between the 7 of them.
They offer a wide array of strengths and interests that benefit our cohort, the School of Social Work, and their future communities, including political organizing and dialogue facilitation,
organizational evaluation and improvement,
religious leadership,
youth engagement,
counseling,
chaplaincy,
and working to make the Jewish community as inclusive as possible.
They each have different relationships to Judaism and Jewish community. The class above us comes from communities from the traditional to the radical, from the secular to the observant.
Together, they have a deep commitment to a broad range of Jewish communities, peoplehood, and values. Our peers in the class above us challenged assumptions that we had about what it means to be in this program and part of a broader Jewish community. They supported us when we had challenges with our education and in our personal lives. They set a really strong example of what it means to be in JCLP, to be constantly growing, and to be Jewish leaders. As a small token of our appreciation, the first years have some gifts to present to you.
Your Frankel Center photos. Rachel and I took them off the walls for you. And then we have a note.
We're so proud of you all, and we're excited to see you continue to grow and lead. You're all off to do different things, but each one of you is clearly becoming a Jewish leader in your own authentic way.
To close out, everyone in the rising second year class wanted to share a reflection we collectively wrote about our expectations for how you will impact the American Jewish experience. Young Jew. There's no place to feel down, I said, young Jew. Pick yourself off the ground, I said, young Jew. 'Cause you're leaving this town, there's no need to be so stressed out, young Jew. JCLP was your home, I said, young Jew. Now you're out on your own, you can come back. And we're sure you will find many ways to have a good time. Boom, 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 boom.
You're
boom.
graduating from
JCLP. You're graduating from JCLP. If you want a good batch, then you know where we are. You can find us at Seminar. JCLP. You're graduating from JCLP. If you want to discuss some important issues, you can do it with all the Jews. Young Jew, you will do some great things because you're out from under Carla's wings. I said, young Jew, you can make real your dreams, but you've got to know this one thing. No Jew does it all by theirself. I said, young Jew, 'cause we all need your help, so go make change in the community with your new professional ID. Boom, 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 boom. We'll really miss you in JCLP. We'll really miss you in JCLP. You are such a good group. Please don't go away. You can come visit any day. JCLP, we're gonna miss you in JCLP. We learned so much from you. We've got nothing but love. Yasher Koach and Mazel Tov.
I don't know how I'm going to top that, so I'll just, sit back down. Hey, everyone. Good morning. I'm so happy that we're all here together. It's such a joy and such a blessing to have participated in this, but also in such a dynamic and thoughtful cohort, community of learners. This begins where I'm reflecting about my time in JCLP, so I'm going to read from the sheet a little bit. I've so valued this time over the past 2 years, and it's been so incredibly special. And as I've said to my peers, my cohort, I've thought of it as so much more than just the pro seminar. It's felt a lot more like the crack team of experts coming together, the Jewish Super Friends, the Justice League, who are committed to rigorous intellectual inquiry, meaningful discourse, and we've been commissioned to transform Jewish community and rectify all of the world's problems. You know, just the small stuff expected of any graduate student. It's been so much more than a class for me. It's been a space to not just learn about so-called leadership and what that might mean, but to put it into practice and to enact our values. It's a learning laboratory where we consider what might this all look like? Judaism, community, society, pedagogy, activism, any of that. What might that look like if we were building it from the ground up, which is something that Sue Ann Savas asked us when she visited our first year seminar last year. More than that, it's been something akin to family. It's a source of celebration, joy, humor, and support, not only through the hard times that come from graduate school, but also the flare-ups of violence, xenophobia, suffering that we've seen now in this moment, as Carla would say. The space has truly been an incubator for me. I've been so grateful for it and for you all. I came in with very little experience in the so-called organized, mainstream, institutional Jewish community. I hadn't been to a federation and only vaguely knew of the world of Jewish philanthropy. I'd also never practiced social work, and I didn't even really know what it meant. But through JCLP, I've been able to sit with individuals and families through illnesses and the end of life through my work with the Jewish Hospice and Chaplaincy Network, ask probing questions and occasionally give tochacha, rebuke, to high-level federation and foundation executives in closed-door meetings. I've been able to sing nigunim, wordless melodies, while learning of the existentialist Torah of Rebbe Nachman and the activist Torah of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Been able to fundraise and use university coffers to subsidize radical Jewish Latinx poetry and rabble-rousing, and to reflexively and collectively interrogate our relationships as Jews with fraught issues of identity and intersectionality, power and privilege, anti-Semitism, Zionism, and more. It's become such a fixture in my life to have this set time and space to process and question with people who really care, that it hasn't really hit me yet what it will be like to move on and to not have these Wednesday nights together. I'm blessed, thank God, to have beloved community, but you can't replicate this. I just wanted to mention some words that I found while looking through my JCLP journals, which was, as an assignment, Carla requires that every week we're reflecting on the stuff we deal with. And so looking back over my collected 2 years, I have about 60 pages of text that I looked through and was reflecting on. And I found a little snippet that came from after I participated in a demonstration in downtown Detroit with a group, If Not Now, who works to end the American Jewish support for the occupation in Palestine. And this was in November of 2016. So it was a time in which I felt kind of politically motivated for, as Heschel would say, moral grandeur and spiritual audacity. And so I went to this protest in lieu of seminar, making my stand. And granted, there were only I don't even think there was a minyan. There weren't even 10 of us there. So it was kind of an insignificant, in some ways it felt, we didn't make a big splash, but in some ways it was so significant. And I found these words that I wrote last year. And I said, one of my takeaways from this was that there was something that both Judaism and justice work have in common. It's obligation. Regardless of the potential results, spiritual edification or political change, you have a responsibility to do the damn thing, whether that's showing up in protest or lighting Shabbat candles. Obviously, we want to use the most skillful means and best strategies to make it happen. But all in all, we've got to, as Leonard Cohen, Zichron Levarcha, said, forget our perfect offerings and ring the bells that still can ring. I think it's really easy to focus on deficiencies and missteps in post-action analysis, and this can quickly lead to a loss of hope. But this is what community is there for, to provide that support and that nudge and that sense of responsibility to get you back out there, working until those actions are effective. I think that this sense of commitment has been one of my main takeaways from my experience in JCLP. And I'm reminded of the words of Rabbi Tarfon from Pirkei Avot, the sayings of our ancestors, which is something of our JCLP motto. I saw it's on the program. But it's not incumbent on you to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist yourself from it. And I share this reflection with you all and with you in particular, because this has been such a guiding light for me. This sense of whether it's with social work, Jewish community, or all of those intersections, we have to keep doing the work. This is about togetherness and mutual accountability. This is about holding each other in tenderness and in that accountability, in tension and in flow. This is about deepening and elaborating our interconnectedness, getting further intertwined and connected with one another, knowing that, as Reb Zalman said, the only way to get it together is together. And so in this moment, I just feel extremely grateful to have spent the past 2 years with you all, Carla, in the School of Social Work, and all my teachers, and to be celebrated by all of you in this process of learning and growing together. And my blessing for us all is may we continue to grow together, to hold each other accountable, and to hold each other tenderly. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jake. That was beautiful. The Jewish people, ever since David slew Goliath, have never considered youth as a barrier to leadership. JFK. Thank you to my family, my friends, Paige and Carla, for the opportunity to learn in JCLP for the last 2 years. As we move across the country, I hope this program has inspired in each of us the calling of leadership. I know JCLP will help me in my upcoming position as Youth Engagement Director to build meaningful community and cultivate leadership in Jewish youth in Miami. Does anyone need a winter jacket? I'm done with that. To my cohort, you all are amazing. Because you've asked the insightful questions I would have never thought to ask, shared perspectives I never heard before, and were always willing to take the time to help me understand these things, I've learned so much from each of you. I hope you've gained as much from me as I have from you. To the first years, you're second years now. Good luck, enjoy it. I know I could really use a third year here in JCLP. To those graduating, thank God we made it, and good luck in all of our futures. My time in Ann Arbor and in JCLP has been quite the learning experience with plenty of challenges. Despite these challenges, like my many field placements and learning to drive in the snow, I feel this program has really been transformative. Never before, and I'm not sure when again, will I get the opportunity to be challenged with so many unique thoughts and perspectives and views on the Jewish community. I really believe I'm a better leader because of this. I plan to use these experiences to encourage the children and teens I will be working with to express their connection to the Jewish community, not just by participating in it, but by challenging it to be more. I hope to inspire the next generation of leaders to strive for equity, inclusion, and justice in the Jewish community and beyond. So to close, as the notorious RBG encourages, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Thanks.
Good morning. I feel like I should be saying Shabbat Shalom to everyone, but it's just Kol Yisrael Arivim Zeh Bazeh. All Jews are responsible for one another. This phrase has been the cornerstone of my family and is what has brought me into the Jewish Communal Leadership Program. Before this program, I was proud to be a Jew. I had a strong sense of self, of my values and beliefs, of my relationship with Judaism. I cared deeply for the Jewish community, and every social service opportunity was driven by the notion of Kol Yisrael Arivim Zeh Bazeh. So a little over 20 months ago, I stumbled upon the University of Michigan's Jewish Communal Leadership Program in the School of Social Work. And I thought to myself, this is right up my alley. This is the next natural step in my Jewish journey. What I didn't realize was just how much I would learn. I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional. Both about myself and about the Jewish community that surrounds me. When I entered into this program, I thought I was the queen of Judaism. I mean, I went to Camp Ramah, after all. But I quickly came to realize that I was far from an expert. While I was hesitant at first, Carla and the rest of the JCLP students gave me the tough love I so badly needed to push myself beyond my comfort zone. It is in this space that I have been able to think critically about the nuances of the Jewish community. JCLP is a one-of-a-kind program where diverse students can come together and have a unique space to learn and grow. Having gone through this program, I am leaving not only with a thirst for continued learning, but also a deeper understanding of the significance of differing perspectives. So in fear of making this sound too much like a Federation fundraising pitch, because I know I will have plenty of those to do over the next few years, I'll just say this: Kol Yisrael Arivim Zeh Bazeh. We are all responsible for one another. As my fellow classmates and I leave this valuable space and bring our newfound knowledge into the world at large, may we bring this phrase with us. I'm incredibly excited to see what we are all able to accomplish and the benefit we make on the Jewish community and beyond. A huge thank you to Carla, who has challenged me to explore my Jewish identity in ways I never knew I could. And to Paige, who has allowed me to spend countless hours in her office as I navigated through this transitional chapter in my life. You are both incredible professionals, and I appreciate your commitment to enriching our lives and preparing us for the future. To my cohort, I couldn't have done this without you. You are all unbelievably beautiful people, and I can't thank you enough for pushing me to think differently about absolutely every Jewish issue under the sun, or should I say in the Jewish tent. Lastly, to my family, you are the reason I am who I am today, and your encouragement and unwavering support is forever cherished. Thank you.
For many reasons, coming to Michigan was a huge leap of faith for me. I left a long-term job, social justice, and Jewish communities I was deeply involved with. I left my family, my dearest friends, mild winters, biscuits, pimento cheese, much more. I think the biggest reason I took that leap and came to this program was simply because of the deep curiosity and sometimes coincidence that has carried me down so many paths so far in my life. I was curious to find out where I might end up if I had the boundless opportunities of the University of Michigan and gave myself 2 years to pursue them. I was curious about how far I could push myself to become a more conscious activist and advocate if I intentionally surrounded myself with people I knew I could and should learn from. I was curious to continue to deepen a spiritual journey that had emerged on my path and had already brought me surprising joy in a short period of time. Going back to school, I wanted the precious time and space to explore these curious parts of myself academically and personally. And I got a lot of time. I very unscientifically calculated more than 535 hours, about 13 and a half work weeks that this group has spent together talking about big questions and dreaming about big, equitable, innovative solutions in seminar, at conferences, in Judaic studies classes, and at bars. And while I've enjoyed learning about budgeting and human resources, sorry, Barb, these times with JCLP have been the most impactful and most challenging intellectual experiences of my time at the School of Social Work. I have been so impressed and inspired by the curiosity of these folks in the front row. You've challenged me to center the perspective of the individual, to be a social worker first and foremost before being a nonprofit administrator or evaluator. You have so beautifully and thoughtfully challenged some of the most important leaders in the American Jewish community, and I have learned so much from your models of open facilitation and deep listening. I'm so grateful to this community, which has been the most affirming, non-judgmental Jewish community, maybe any community, that I've ever been a part of. I'm so glad to have this group as an example to strive for in the future when I'm responsible for setting that tone. Thank you to Carla for setting and holding that accepting space and for opening the doors to so many opportunities for this group and for me personally. Thanks to wonderful Paige for keeping all the wheels turning and being such a support for all of us before and during the program and probably after, because you're not getting rid of me. Thanks to everyone else in this room who has been my teacher or field supervisor for really knowing how to be the kind of social work support I needed, and to all the folks who have given so much of their time personally to help me get the most out of this social work experience. Thanks to my family for being here today and for always being such a consistent foundation of love and support. And Garrett, thank you for your easygoing support of all of my pursuits, from packing up and following me to the Midwest, to always agreeing to nail things to the walls even before the furniture's set up. And thanks again to this group. I'm so excited to see where your openness and curiosity leads you and our broader community.
Hi, everyone. I'm Essie, in case you're not following along. Earlier this spring, students in JCLP were lucky enough to plan and attend a weekend of events with Aurora Levins Morales, a wonderfully moving poet and activist from California. Aurora spoke of historical pasts, capacious presents, and inspired futures. We asked her about urgency of this particular political moment, which is a question that is always on our minds, both as social workers and Jewish communal leaders. What does our community need right now? What can we do to fight the newest executive order? What are the most immediate needs of our clients in crisis? How should we respond to urgency regarding Jewish continuity? Aurora's response was to stay grounded in a sustainable movement that can address both immediate needs as well as preserve ourselves for the future. She explained that a major tenet of building the sustainable movement is to hold tightly to our imagined ideal future, while not forgetting the reality of present times. She said, "Keep your feet in the mud and your head in the stars." I've been thinking about these words since she spoke them and letting their impact really sink in. Of course, it makes so much sense that we should imagine our ideal future in our work as Jewish professionals, social workers, and Jewish social justice advocates. An architect wouldn't build a house without a blueprint illustrating the final project, so how can we work towards something we can't visualize? I felt slightly guilty that I didn't have a concrete vision for my ideal future for the Jewish community, even though I'd been working towards some nebulous future for the past 2 years in JCLP. Daydreaming about a fantasy future just felt so indulgent. Sure, I'd like the Jewish community to be more understanding, inclusive, diverse, and less satisfied with the status quo. But these descriptors are so vague that I didn't really know what that would look like in practice. But over the past few weeks, as I've been reflecting on my experience in JCLP, I realize I do have a vision for this future. In JCLP, we have created a microcosm that reflects what I hope for the Jewish community. The JCLP cohort, though its membership has changed over the past 2 years, is a place where all are included and made to feel valuable. It's a place where good intent is always assumed, and that's the only assumption made. It's a place where Jews of all different backgrounds work together and contribute different perspectives. It's an environment where we can and do disagree vehemently and still love and respect each other. It's a place where young people feel invested in the community and empowered to take charge, a place where we live our values, a space of moral courage and audacious leadership, a place where we challenge and comfort each other, a place where I feel at home. So thank you, members of last year's cohort, the rising second years, and my fellow graduates, for contributing to this beautiful space that was without a doubt the best part of my grad school experience. You have all challenged me, stretched my worldview, and lifted me up. You have not only helped craft my vision, for our communal future, but I now have hope that it can be a reality with you as leaders and change makers. I'd also like to thank Carla and Paige for cultivating a space in which we were able to grow personally and collectively as leaders, activists, and thinkers. It's not always easy to support cohesion and respect in a group whose members hold such vastly different opinions and personalities, but you were able to do so gracefully and as excellent role models for us. Mazel tov, Jake, Erica, Alana, Leah, Ilana, and Eli. I can't wait to see what we do in our starry-headed, muddy-footed futures.
Hello again. About 11 and a half years ago, at the age of 12, I gave a beautiful speech on the Torah portion Vayera. Unfortunately, what I prepared for you all this morning is not a full rendition of that speech, but rather an emphasis on an important word I talked about then that I want to share with you all today. And that word is hineni, meaning here I am. This word often shows up in the Torah when the thing to be done is something hard. The response is something like, I hear your call. I understand what you are asking of me, and I'm prepared and ready to do it because I recognize, although it is hard, is it important that I act. In other words, hineni is the word the Torah uses to bring us fully present into a moment. In our liturgy, the cantor sings, hineni, here I am with deep humility, to prepare us all for prayer service. When I first started this MSW program, I felt prepared to take on the challenges and injustices that permeated our world with passion and meet every one of my clients' needs with a forceful hineni. While I was ready and willing to be fully present and dwell in the difficulty of clinical social work, the challenges that I wasn't prepared for involved being called upon to think as deeply, critically, and differently about my own identity, specifically my Jewish identity. I quickly discovered that when it came to topics about Israel, my Jewish education, and privilege, mustering the courage to stare those contentious topics in the eye were not as naturally. Almost 2 years later, I proudly stand before you with a brand new way to apply the word Hineni. Hineni. Here I am, trembling yet rooted in my commitment to my Jewish people. When I began my JCLP journey, I understood what Jewish community looked like from within. However, I soon realized that I still had a lot to learn about the Jewish community in the context of the world. It was not something that I had previously needed to think much about, and coming into a Jewish graduate program, I hadn't anticipated otherwise. That quickly changed as soon as I got the chance to experience the Ann Arbor Jewish community, a behind-the-scenes look into the world of Jewish Federation and some of our country's most influential Jewish leaders. A lot of what I learned during these past 20 months has been the difficult, real, challenging, and important topics of what Judaism is and means in the 21st century. During my first year of the program, with every new guest speaker and new revelation, I would find myself stunned and sometimes even furious. My heart saying, leave, but I would always decide to stay. Each week, I found myself eager to return to seminar, our weekly class consisting of equal parts passion, confrontation, and growth. While conversations that pushed and provoked me were hard, I've come to value the way that with honest reflection and dialogue comes healing. Hineni, here I am, so new to the Jewish professional world. I stand ready to represent my beliefs and actions, even in moments of alienation or discomfort. Making ultimatums, walking away from social justice work because it doesn't happen on my terms is simply not an option. I have no choice but to continue working for what I perceive to be right, even if I'm not always sure where the path ahead will take me. Hineni, here I am as an MSW and JCLP graduate, empowered and motivated, present in this moment, and enthusiastic about what lies ahead. I want to thank my parents for being living examples of how to live a life full of Hineni, what it means to show up for others and show up for myself. Thank you, Carla and Paige, for guiding me throughout the last 2 years with endless support. To the first year cohort for making this past year so awesome. And of course, Essie, Eli, Alana, Leah, Erica, and Jake, for not only being my peers, but my community, my teammates, my heroes, my mishpacha, my family. You have all been such an integral part of why this experience was so positive. Thank you for inspiring me and challenging me to always be my best. I couldn't have done it without you.
11 years ago this weekend, I was gathered around friends, family, and Jewish community at my bar mitzvah. At age 13, I was asked to emerge into a leader within the Jewish community when I knew very little about leadership and hadn't the faintest idea of what my Jewish identity meant to me. Thanks to JCLP, I now have excellent leadership skills. I continue to be challenged, however, in finding resolution in my Jewish identity. But then again, the challenge of navigating Judaism in my life has led me to this podium in front of you fantastic people, and for that I'm grateful. At my bar mitzvah 11 years ago this weekend, my dad told me that when faced with a choice, the right decision may not always be the one that works out best for me. Whether or not he knew the depth of his wisdom he was gifting me, it's taken me 11 years and a master's degree to become proximate to its meaning. So here goes nothing. In social justice spaces, we're often asked to think about the ways in which both privilege and oppression show up in our lives. We discuss our lived experiences through dialogue, challenge one another to be vulnerable, organize actions together, and grow. And then we do it again and again and again and again. In the countless times that I've sprinted, crawled, froze, and even moved backward through this cycle, I've developed a lens in which I see the world. I've also come to realize the ways in which the world sees me. As a white, upper-class, straight-passing, able-bodied Jewish American man, I have enough privilege and agency to make nearly any choice I want when I'm presented with a decision, as my dad suggested would come before me. Ironically, I'm only aware of this reality because folks with far less privilege than I have been generous enough to share their lived experiences of being marginalized, have challenged me to be vulnerable with them, has shown me what an action oriented towards justice looks like, and have lovingly built a container for me to grow in. My social justice education is a privilege that required the emotional and physical labor of people who have to work infinitely harder than I do to survive in this world. Despite that, I am still the one afforded with an opportunity to stand at a podium with a microphone and captive audience. For those here that know me well, I don't think it will come as any surprise when I tell you that since I attended last year's JCLP graduation ceremony, very few days have gone by without me considering what I wanted to say in my graduation speech today. When faced with a choice, the right decision may not always be the one that works out best for me. Every choice I face in life is underlined by the history of decisions that have been made before it. Many of those decisions didn't include me, but they have nevertheless created the circumstances through which I see the world and the world sees me. Conversely, the choices that present themselves to me today do include me and will help create circumstances that in our world in the future. Today more than ever, when faced with a choice, the right decision must be the one that does not immediately work out best for me. For those of us who recognize the presence of privilege in our lives, our commitment to justice must exceed the immediate benefits that could arise from a decision that works out best for us. The difference between acknowledgement and action is that acknowledgement of privilege is passive. Action invites change. Giving up privilege has not and never will be a passive act. If we want the world to change, we must change too. Change and justice depend on the decisions we make and the actions we follow through on, even if they do not work out best for us right now. For in time, justice, purpose, and happiness become one and the same. I want to thank my dad for giving me such profound wisdom at such a young age, my mom for nourishing my soul to find meaning in it, my brothers for helping me be the best version of myself, my boyfriend Will for his ears, his eyes, and his heart, and my JCLP cohort Paige and Carla for helping me find my voice. Thank you.
Hello. So I'm Carla Goldman, director of the Jewish Communal Leadership Program, and I think I don't really have to tell you that much about the program. I think that by being here, you really understand what it is that these folks have created and how they have grown. So I was thinking, though, I needed to tell a story. So I remember one that one of my professors in graduate school told when he was trying to teach us about Hasidism. So Elliot, don't leave. Because actually you might be a source on this. When I looked up this story on the internet, it suggested it was a Hasidic story, but there were also suggestions it might be a Chinese story. So you'll maybe be able to tell us. Anyway, this is a story about a simple Hasid, one who had spent Shabbat at the Rebbe's tish, at the Rebbe's table, hearing the Rebbe's highfalutin, very esoteric thoughts, reflecting on the afterlife and heaven and hell. And this simple Hasid, who I'll call Alex, why not, was walking home and thinking, geez, I really didn't understand what the Rebbe was talking about. This heaven and hell, well, what is that? I can't get my mind around it. And just then, a path opened before Alex, and a cloaked guide appeared by Alex's side. And they followed a path to a broad green meadow of stunning beauty. And in the distance, they saw a beautiful and grand home. And as they came closer, Alex saw it was beyond the realm of anything that Alex had ever imagined. And as they continued, they came to see a series of glorious banquet tables laden with beautiful, exquisite food of infinite variety. Ah, said Alex, so I see. This is heaven. The guide said, no, look a little closer. This is hell. And when Alex looked closer, they saw that despite the fine clothes that the folks at the table were wearing, the people were haggard and skeletal. And again, Alex looked closer and saw that the would-be diners had no elbows. despite the fact that there was all this food in front of them they could not eat. Suddenly, Alex was back in the forest, much amazed, but really no more illuminated about the nature of heaven. And then once again, the guide and the path appeared. And Alex followed it, finding again a gorgeous, vibrant field with a beautiful home in the distance. And as they approached the house, Alex began to smell the same beautiful, savory food and saw the same overladen tables. And then again saw the people had no elbows. What? Alex said. Am I back in hell? Look closer, Alex, the guide said. And then Alex saw. It's true, the diners had no elbows, but at this table, they were feeding each other. Ah, now I understand the difference between heaven and hell, Alex said. It's the people who are there. The past 2 academic years that our graduating students have spent in Ann Arbor have not been the cheeriest of times or the most hopeful in our country, in the world, nor even at the University of Michigan or in the School of Social Work, or, I should say, for emphasis, in the Jewish community. And I can't stand here and tell you that I don't myself often feel desperate about the direction of our country, nor that we haven't spent a lot of time commiserating in our classroom. But I will tell you that when people ask me what I do, and then say, "Oy, isn't it terrible what's happening in the Jewish community? Isn't it depressing? Doesn't it seem like there's not much hope?" I say, "Oh, that's so odd that you would say that. I don't feel that way at all." And I realize it's because of the people that I've been spending my time with. And this morning, as Julian shared earlier, I hope that you feel that way too. It is the people around us who make the difference and who I believe will make a difference. Over the last 2 years, these students have challenged each other and themselves. They've learned from and taught the cohort that preceded them, many of whom I'm so glad are here. And they have taught and learned from the students who follow them. In our seminar, we have all been teachers and learners. We have all fed each other. So I now have the opportunity to recognize our graduates. Page. As Jake mentioned, this is a little bit of our motto. We have these very beautiful certificates. And the motto, which is on your program, and we're looking at from Pirkei Avot, the work is not yours to finish, but neither are you free to take no part in it. This is ongoing work, and we're very proud that these folks will be a part of it. So we're going to go, just to keep a little suspense in the air, by first name. So Alana, I'm sorry, you're in charge. Alana Goldstein. So Alana, as you've heard, has taken on the challenge of thinking critically about American Jewish community. And she leaves for a new job at the Jewish Federation of Greater Cincinnati, where she is ready to carry out what I really have come to think of as JCLP's prime directive, to strengthen our Jewish institutions by asking them hard questions that they may have been avoiding and helping them themselves ask those questions, and helping them engage constituents that they may not have realized they were not seeing. So one of the things we like to do here is get books for folks to take with them so that they won't feel they have nothing to read. I have 2 books for Alana. One is Reimagining Leadership in Jewish Organizations by Misha Galperin. And this is interesting. Misha Galperin was the head of the Jewish Agency in the US, and someone who we might think as a real kind of establishment folk. And yet in this book, which is, I shouldn't say yet, and in this book he asks really interesting questions, important questions and ideas about how to sort of renew Jewish leadership and community. So definitely worth looking at. And we also got When They Come For Us, We'll Be Gone, The Epic Struggle to Save Soviet Jewry by Gal Beckerman. And this is a reminder about Kol Yisrael Aravim Zebizeh, that we are a people that needs to care for each other, and that when institutions that exist, like the Jewish Federations, come together, they can really change the world. And we hope that you will do that too.
Eli Zucker,
So, we have been so lucky to have Eli with us to share his critical, questioning, thoughtful, and supportive presence the past few years. A few days ago, Eli and I were talking about his path forward. I was questioning his ideas for his professional identity. And we ended up talking about what it means to grow and evolve as a difference maker throughout one's life. I pulled one of my favorite books off the shelf about 4 young immigrant women who reshaped the American labor movement. At first, as they walked off their job as teenagers and young women, and who then navigated both power and oppression to make a difference throughout their lives and really change the America that we inhabit. This is Common Sense and a Little Fire by Annalise Orlick, about 4 radical Jewish women activists who changed and evolved throughout their life, as I know that Eli will. And it just so happens, this conversation was on Thursday, that I have 2 copies of this book. And I'm now bequeathing one to Eli Zucker, and I hope you don't mind a few annotations.
Erica Golden.
So as Erica shared, she has found many challenges to take on in her time at the University of Michigan, not least of which was dealing with the Northern Winters. Having deepened and broadened her understanding of Jewish community and history, Erica is now returning to the fascinating 21st century American Jewish community, also a warmer weather of Miami, Florida, where she gets to follow her passion and where she sees the promise for the future in working with Jewish youth at a Reform synagogue there. We've chosen for her a book that will illuminate the origins of this community while also connecting her to her studies here. So this is this wonderful book by my colleague, Deborah Dash Moore, To the Golden Cities, Pursuing the American Jewish Dream in Miami and LA. So a nice signed copy from your professor.
Essie.
Essie has been a role model for us all. What Essie shared also was in Essie's journal, and I was very tempted to rip it off to describe what it was that I hoped that JCLP could be, and just loved the way that you put that together. Essie has asked sharp questions and reminded us of our challenges, our possibilities, and our remarkable strengths, and has often also taken on the responsibility of creating a community beyond the classroom, bringing the very best out of the JCLP group. As Essie moves to Chicago and the exciting prospect of working for Keshet, where they completed a field placement last summer, I'm sharing a book by Amy Hoffman, An Army of Ex-Lovers, My Life at the Gay Community News, which is an account of a group that brought forth a new radical vision of what was possible, what had previously been imagined, and worked together to create the world anew. And I know that's something that you're going to be doing. And by the way, all these books are worth reading, right? There were other choices, but like we wanted to choose ones that really would speak to you and that you could.
Alana.
So Ilana has brought an appreciation for Jewish communal possibility, an investment in the Jewish future and its institutions. From her, you heard about the serious work that she has done in re-examining many of those assumptions and in reframing for herself an understanding of what it means to be a part of participating in and building Jewish community. You've also heard from her and understood her open heart and her kind spirit. In that vein, in both of those veins, we've gotten her a beautiful book that opens up the beauty, bleakness, complexity, and humanity of the founding of Israel through the eyes of a young boy, Amos Oz. This is his tale of love and darkness, as he tries to understand his parents and the moment he was born into. I know that this book will provide a platform for your continued learning and growth.
Jake.
Here's Jacob Ehrlich. Jake is always so thoughtful, so knowledgeable. When he arrived here, he was already both of those things and very strong in his opinions and stances and aspirations. But despite that, already knowing who he is, already having all of those strengths, he has taken every encounter and discussion as a chance to push himself and his ideas and his understanding further, to look at what's difficult in what's before him, not what is easily understood. Congregation Chia and Detroit Jews for Justice and the clients of the Jewish Hospital and Chaplaincy Network in Detroit are so fortunate that Jake will be moving on to share his amazing mix of mind and spirit with them. He will be in a place, hooray, to continue thinking about and shaping the possibilities and shape of American Judaism. So in that spirit, I've gotten him to reflect his own sort of complex thinking, a very complex book. This one might be a little harder to read than the others, but it reflects our faith in you that you can take advantage of it. This is by Shaul Magid. It's called American Post-Judaism, Identity and Renewal in a Post-Ethnic Society, and really thinks about what Judaism will need to look like as our world changes around us.
Leah.
So anyone who has watched Leah make her way through field placements, endless course substitutions, always in search of something that will be more difficult, and trying to find the settings and the opportunities that will be most demanding in the context of the courses, field placements, and activism, also becoming, while a graduate student, a professional evaluation consultant, will appreciate not only her critical questioning mind, but also the way that she seeks to ground her critiques and her understanding in serious knowledge and analysis. Leah has pushed us all to hold out expectations for what we should be looking for courageous moral leadership. And those are not so easy to find, because a lot of the time in the School of Social Work and in our program, we talk about the realm of the possible, not always about sort of the impossible, not always the sky, because we want people to sort of learn how to be effective. But one of the wonderful things about this group is to hold on to the possibility of a radical vision. So for Leah, got this interesting book by Susan Rosenberg. It's called An American Radical. She was somebody who was imprisoned for her work in the Weather Underground, her work for a bombing, who writes about her through that time, her time in prison. She was ultimately pardoned by Barack Obama, I believe, and her work since then. And what's amazing about this is sort of a lesson about how you can be a leader in any circumstances and try to hold on to your vision and sort of think about how it fits with the world that you're in or how it doesn't. So I think that this will be the other books that I thought about for Leah were immediately came to mind was Emma Goldman, who was someone who stuck to sort of her moral vision and her political vision no matter what came, and I recommend that to you to read her autobiography. But I thought that somebody sort of who was more contemporary would be a different kind of challenge than someone who was the beginning of the 20th century. So a few final words. As I shared with our students a few weeks ago, it was just about 10 years ago that I was sitting in my office in Brookline, Massachusetts at the American Jewish Archive, sorry, it's a bad slip, at the Jewish Women's Archive. And I was dreaming and writing about what might be possible should I come, as I was planning to then, to the University of Michigan. As I wrote then, I hoped that the program I would work to create here would serve future leaders who would help push the Jewish community to look outward as well as inward. I hope they would develop a responsive and nuanced understanding of the enduring complexity of the American Jewish community and its responsibilities in the context of our multicultural society. I hoped we would create alumni who would lead their communities in working positively within the Jewish community and with other groups to create a more vibrant, American society. I already thanked these students, for helping my dreams of 10 years ago come true. But I realize now that when I thought about this role, I was focusing on embracing the challenges of taking on Jewish communal issues in a serious way and of finding a way to engage students in that work. What I didn't think about so much and hadn't planned on was how much my challenge and growth would come from getting to share in my students' perspectives, questions, and their dreams. I hadn't realized that if this effort was successful, I would end up learning at least as much from them as they would from me. We are very lucky here in the Jewish Communal Leadership Program for so many things. For the support of the School of Social Work and the Frankel Center, for the many faculty from both those programs who are here, for the generosity of current and past donors, for the many, many folks, many of whom are here, like Tilly Shames, Sarai Brockman-Shope, Irene Butter, all of whom have spoken at previous JCLP graduations, but also Eileen Freed. I know there are others here. Sue Crabb, Alana Alpert, who have really been there for and taught our students. I've been a part of their experience here. For Paige Walker, who has invested herself so much in the good and welfare of these students and of our program. And for, in general, our families and a very generous and supportive community that we get to be a part of. But right now, what I feel most grateful for is these human beings, these graduates who have come to grow here, and for the opportunity we've had to learn from and with each other. Thank you for showing that no matter the challenges we face, we can find a way to feed each other. Thank you, everybody. We have a closing song.
If we could have Carla and Paige come back up just for 1 second. Sorry. We have a framed picture coming for you also, but we just wanted to give this as a token of our thank you. And there's a little card right there. And for Paige, just to show our appreciation and how much we've grown and loved our time with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.